right off the bat, I'm just gonna give you guys a trigger warning. We have Piers Morgan, we have this journalist here, and they're basically talking about transgenderism. So you already know this is gonna be a good one. If you're sensitive, get up and walk your behind out because it's gonna be wild. Without further ado, let's ride.
Nice. Talk to contributor Paul Arone Adrian, political journalist Ava Santina, and international editor Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome to my dazzling pack. All right. Paul, I can see you.
You can see.
Raging to go. Off you go.
Ready. Well, I'm intrigued that you've decided to open this really serious and sensitive debate by suggesting that somebody referencing themselves as a cat equates to a child who is struggling to understand.
I didn't. I actually separated the two things.
How to identify.
Well, you heard me separate the two things.
They're two completely...
Yeah, but Paul, hang on. Sorry. You heard me separate the two things. I read out again and reminded people of the absurdity of a teacher calling children despicable for saying it was ridiculous to allow someone to be a cat. And then I said, but there are serious issues involving people who are seriously going through the issue of transgenderism for real. Not just a fad of being a cat. Well, they're different things.
They are completely different things.
So don't misquote me.
But you're opening with that as if it's somehow something to be dismissed and somehow to be treated as a joke. And this is my problem with the guidelines.
Not to be taken as a joke, no.
Which we have waited 5 years for.
Parents being informed about what their children are doing at school is not a joke to me.
I'm
a father of 4 kids who've been through school. I want to know. If one of my kids suddenly decides to identify as a cat, I want a phone call from the school. Right?
We've waited 5 years for these guidelines. These guidelines start off by saying it's about parents being first. We're putting parents first.
Yes.
That's wrong, Piers. It's not about parents. It's about the child. It's about the vulnerable child.
You're a parent, right?
Absolutely. Who needs the adults around them to support them during this difficult period for them.
But what it doesn't need.
Yeah, I disagree. Man, she started to get on a roll and then she said that and I was like, nah, I can't. I'm sorry. Like, personally, me, here's the deal, right? Check this out. I don't have any kids, but I do have siblings. And obviously, I've been through the school system. Now, when I went through the school system, what was that, 14, 15 years ago? My goodness, I'm dating myself. It was literally completely different. It was a different world, literally a different world, right? These days, I can't imagine the external pressures that a lot of these young students face, right? Having to be so politically correct. I remember the worst thing. I remember a kid getting in trouble for saying shut up. I remember like shut up was like, don't say that. And you would, I remember that my teacher had it was like a whiteboard. And basically if you got a check next to your name for saying something bad like that, now they're dealing with this stuff, right? Now you got to let them identify as a cat, as a dog, as a cow or whatever it is. And if you don't let them do certain things or identify what they want to identify as, then all of a sudden you're in trouble. Let me know if that's right. Let me know what you think, but back to the video.
Is for the child who is vulnerable to be told, no, the parent comes first. That's the wrong approach.
No, the parent does come first until the child is an adult.
So, Paula, if you want your child to be given medicine at school, if you want them just to have some Calpol, you have to get permission. You have to go through a process. I have to sign a form if I want my child to have Calpol at school for a headache or a sore throat or whatever. It is, to me, it is negligent and bordering on abusive to allow schools just to honour a child's wishes to be known temporarily as something else without involving
for them to be made comfortable. This is where we become confused. We've been child-focused and saying that the child gets everything they want. That's not what I'm saying. Being child-focused does not mean that everything the child says is right. But what I'm concerned about is that saying parent first means that anything that the child says is always going to come second to what their parent wants.
So do you think parents should be cut out the loop? Let's make this a lot simpler then.
Yes,
do you think it's OK for parents to be cut out the loop? Because that's at the heart of this.
Absolutely not.
That's at the heart.
So they should be involved then?
A parent must be
they should be
involved.
told.
So
A parent must be involved.
then?
No, because we're missing out on a really important cog here.
So
even if the parent agrees that the child would like to use a different set of pronouns, the school does not have to abide by that. And it would only be exceptional circumstances where the school actually accepts it. So at the moment, there'll be a lot of children around the country who will be going into the Christmas period now, not knowing how they'll be identified when they go into school in January.
You know what? They get identified as boy or girl.
Right, but why
like the old days.
Why do you feel like that?
You don't go in and say, you call me they like Sam Smith. No, those days are done.
Piers, you're shouting.
Because it's so stupid.
You're shouting.
No, Piers is wild for that one.
Let's shout about the fact that the criminal stats tell us that hate crime against transgender people have gone up 11% in 1 year. Over the last 5 years, it's gone up 186%.
This is way off the subject.
So what we need to do...
I think that's awful.
So what we need to do
I think
is prepare...
Any hatred towards trans people is awful. But why do you think that there is so much mockery of trans people compared to 5-6 years ago? I'll tell you why. Because they are fighting ludicrous battles, the trans lobby, over things like demanding the right of biological males identifying as trans women to compete in sport against females. And the more that happened, and then in Scotland you saw Nicola Sturgeon lose her job because she was putting biological male rapists into female prisons where they could attack women.
What does that have to do?
When this stuff happens, the real victims are genuine trans people who just want to have a quiet life, who go through a lot anyway, and they just want a quiet time and to be respected and tolerant by the tolerant society. And I want to...
And you know what? Just real quick, just to interject. The biggest issue here, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be totally unfiltered and blunt. What she's talking about on a grand scale will not and cannot work. It just won't work, especially if she's talking about people in, say, 5th grade or even middle school, right? The parents have to come first. The parents have to know what's going on, number one, in their schools, right? Because they're the ones that is going to be held accountable for whatever the students do at the end of the day. When a child gets suspended, who do they call? When the child skips school, who do they call? When the child gets into a fight, who do they call? Come on now, back to the video.
I want to take care of those people.
Rally the troops, rally the Conservative troops and say, we're going to fight the next election on the basis of culture wars and trans.
It's not a culture war.
Okay?
To do with it.
It's not a culture war. Sorry.
Somebody help me.
Paula, I'm sorry, but the issue of biological males competing against biological females is not a culture war. It is an absolute full-front assault on women's rights to fairness and
agree with that, and I think
why
we're
any
getting way
woman
off the
still
subject
defends
here.
this nonsense.
All of
it's
you,
ridiculous to me.
all of you,
We
you're
are
off
talking
the
about
subject.
that because it's being dismissed as
We're
culture.
We're talking about schools here, and in my opinion, this guidance doesn't actually go anywhere near far enough.
What would you like it to say?
I don't think it should be. Can I just talk for 1 second here, because I have tried to interject repeatedly and only been talked down. I don't think it needs to be guidance. I think it needs to be the actual law. I do not think schools should have a huge amount of discretion, or indeed any discretion over this. And by the way, this is only a consultation. So we've waited all these months. You say it's years. It's certainly 9 months since Rishi Sunak called for urgent action, and it's only a consultation. Look, for me, this is very straightforward. I do not think children should be encouraged to take decisions that they may come to regret very dreadfully. A lot of this stuff is
as we saw at the Tavistock Clinic, right, Ava?
But these are the arguments that were used against children in the 80s and the 90s when we were talking about, whether children could be gay. We were talking about that. It's exactly the same sort of rhetoric.
And remember,
we shouldn't
Isabel,
be encouraging
we're talking
them.
about social transition.
Being gay is a sexuality.
No,
right? But identifying as a cat is not a sexuality.
No, come on, you know that is a false equivalent.
They're massively different things.
That's not
we
fair.
discussed how we were not going to equate that. We weren't going to use the cat analogy with this very serious discussion.
I just heard it.
At the moment, we've got a murder trial going on, potentially because of a trans child died, all right? And we're talking about bullying.
But there have also been murder trials this year of trans people killing people. So it works both ways.
No,
right?
come on, because, we can't talk about that specific case, but let's be serious.
You can take out individual stories, of course you can, and amplify them.
No, if a child was
bullied...
But
I think both of those are horrific.
And you know, that's the biggest problem I have with any time somebody brings something up. It's literally this specific story. It's 1 out of 100,000 or 1 out of 1,000,000. Like, seriously, just because it happened in Boise, Idaho, on September 15th at 5:00 p.m. does not mean everybody must avoid it. Seriously. Or maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. Let me know in the comment section below. Because for me, I mean, and Piers is kind of doing it too. So Piers is retaliating and he's trying to play that card too. But you don't have to do that. Honestly, he could have just shut that down. I mean, shoot, that's what I would have done. I would have just, I mean, there's plenty of evidence, right? So anyway, maybe let me guys know what you think.
Different reasons. So
what is it?
what's the point?
But trans murderers do not represent trans people. But if a child was killed because they are trans, then that is pretty important.
What's that got to do with the school
Well,
issue?
let me tell you what it's got to
is
do.
Bullying them, then obviously that is that's allowing that sort of behaviour.
Bullying.
Yes,
I don't see how it's going to change bullying.
We know how important schools are. Of course, they are the locus parenti, aren't they, for our children when we send them off in the morning. We know that. And so what's really important, of course, is that the school has guidelines. But what happens is
rules, not guidelines.
Well, and do you know what? That is where I would agree with you on, because at the moment we don't have anything watertight. It's very fluid. We have this consultation period. It's 12 weeks. It's a little bit convenient that they suddenly sent out these guidelines when most schools have broken up, when most schools are coming to the end of their holidays. So what they think that they're going to get back, I don't know.
I'll tell you what's been going on, Paula. There are no doubt there are some children genuinely going through transgenderism, right? They believe they're born in the wrong body and they have to be taken care of, cared for, respected and everything. I totally support that. But there are a very, very small number of people. What has happened in the last 2 to 3 years, there's been an explosion in people identifying as non-binary, gender fluid, 100 other genders, because it's trendy. It's a fad. And teachers have been traduced into going along with this and not telling parents. And it's completely outrageous.
My family are teachers, my friends are teachers, and I spoke to them before I came on this program and I said, do you
Her saying let them just shows that she doesn't understand the gravity of what Piers just said. I'm going to say that again. Her saying that shows that she doesn't understand the gravity. There is nothing wrong with somebody that identifies as that. Absolutely not. The problem is you have a mass people who, some people may not even feel that way, but may feel, oh, this person's doing, because by nature, and see, talking about this topic is very sensitive, right? Because when you're talking about somebody that's young, they have a very impressionable mind, right? So you can mold them and have them say certain things and do certain things, which is why it's so important to have the right teachers, right? And the right people around you. And if she's saying so it's like this thing where if you have everybody around you that's saying, oh, I'm this or oh, I'm that, and they're really not, you know what I'm saying? That's where the confusion comes in, right? So, and then that's going to confuse a person that maybe really is gay, right? And maybe he's trying to play it off, or vice versa, right? Hopefully I'm not confusing you guys, but if I am, let me know in the comments. But back to the video.
You have transgender children at your school? And they said yes. I said, do you use their pronouns? They all said yes. And I told them about this new guidance. And they said, well, that's unworkable. And why would we do that to a child?
How many have they got?
Yeah. What, how many have they got?
How many transgender?
Very, very small, each.
Tiny.
But probably one to each
Right,
person.
now what about the people identifying as non-binary, gender fluid, blah, blah, blah?
But so what?
Right, there was one school in Brighton where there were 1,000 pupils. I think it was something like 300 identifying as non-binary or gender fluid.
I don't think
it's nonsense. It's a fad.
I'm sorry, I don't think it is a so what. I think that when people start having actual surgery to change their bodies in ways that is not reversible.
All right. So, guys, we're going to end it here. Look, again, definitely very sensitive topic. I just, the one part about this video I don't like is that woman just saying, oh, so it's okay. It doesn't matter. You know, no, it does matter. It does matter. And again, there's nothing wrong with you identifying with whatever you want to identify with. But again, the problem is pushing that on other people, right? Pushing that in the schools and pushing that to the youth, right? That's the problem. And when I mean pushing, I'm talking about the specific agenda of, oh, no, it has to be this way. No, everybody is different, right? Everybody has their own artistic way about them, their own unique flavor that they bring, right? So now if she would have just said, oh, you know, let people be themselves and, you know, let them find their way, that's different. That's respectable, right? Because that's what we're all here to do. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Are you siding with Piers or are you siding with the women? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Make sure you slap the like button, kick the subscribe button for more. Until next time, peace.